combination nemesis, determined to wipe us out, and they don't hide their intentions. Let's be clear, we're too far gone for me to be polite. It's not Islam, but it is Islamism, and it's the violent Arab street that has invaded European and North American cities, bringing with them their doctrinaire determination to carry out the Quranic mandate to kill the Jews and conquer Western society.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, everyone. Our hostages are coming home. 20 alive or nearly alive, plus an unknown number of murdered corpses, perhaps 15, perhaps 20. After 2 years of nightmarish captivity, after 2 years of Jews fighting back against a sick terrorist society in Gaza, where every man, woman, and child was shaped into a hate machine, a death cult that cheered and cherished the rape of girls, the roasting of infants, a society that participated fully in the attacks of October 7th, and then the gruesome captivity of our grandmothers and granddaughters, and even last night welcomed the ceasefire news with chants of Kaibar Ya Yahud, kill the Jews. After 2 years of Jews proving we no longer jump into the pit to be shot as the world allowed in a prior generation. Now we race into the tunnel, shooting to fight back. We streak across the skies. We jump to outer space to prevail, and we crawl into the darkest crevices of the belly of the beast and wait for the moment to suddenly rise triumphant. The new Concepcia, born at dawn on October 8th, 2023, suddenly flared before our hypnotized eyes and imbued the awful, awesome, and awe-inspiring reality that it is better to be alive than to be loved. We thank God Almighty, Baruch Hashem, the courageous IDF drawn from ordinary citizens like me and thee, and we thank the tenacious, towering strength of Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who fought against a hating world in a raucous golden calf minority in his own midst. And we thank the miracle-working, peace-loving, Nobel Prize-nominated, unsleeping, unfaltering leader of the free world and of the United States of America, and I mean Donald J. Trump. I am grateful. The Jewish community is grateful. The world is grateful to our enduring president. Those of us in the know understand that this end to the Gaza war will or may lead to a wider beginning in the region. Things I know of, things my guests know of, things which we cannot divulge at this moment, things which may occur very soon and before the end of the year may blossom into a real, transformative Middle East that stands for peace, not bloodshed. That said, until the last footfall of the last hostage limps from the Gaza hellhole back across the fence to Eretz Yisrael, until the last murdered body traverses a haunting horizontal line back home, I will wear my hostage dog tag, thank you, Harvey, as I have for months, everywhere. And when I take it off, it will be hung prominently in a place of constant reminder that history drizzles tears into our champagne. I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 325 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and my latest scoop book, Israel Strikes Iran, as well as a forthcoming 15th anniversary bold edition of Nazi Nexus. Ours is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. Subscribe for alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. This is all we have is your help. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence. Go to theedwinblackshow.com, support, and keep us independent. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by members of the Jewish community of Dallas, Texas, and co-sponsored by my just-released scoop bestseller, Israel Strikes Iran, Operation Rising Lion, which is available everywhere across the planet in 12 paperback, hardback, electronic, and audiobook editions. That said, remember, I only speak for myself, and the same goes for any of my guests. Today, we welcome viewers from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the Villages, Newton, Mass., Chicago, and Harvey in Tampa Bay. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals: Australia, New Zealand. I see Great Britain, Canada, Germany, Holland, France again, Italy, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, Buenos Dias, Mexico, and our big one in Panama, as well as the UAE and Israel, plus other countries. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, speaks frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a turbulent future, still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. Today, on this second anniversary of October 7th, as we await the imminent release of men and women, and don't let us down, Hamas, we are compelled to join this moment to a recurring theme now burning importantly. That's the second Holocaust, and we'll get there in about 15 minutes, maybe 20, after these pre-mono topics. And as always, our world is burning in so many places. Item 1, the Iranian nuclear threat. The work of Operation Rising Lion is not over. Iran is desperate, wounded, cornered, and threatened to its core by Donald J. Trump, who may arrange some grand bargain in the Middle East that they cannot stand for. As predicted, crippling snapback sanctions have been reimposed. Drinkable water is drying up. The economy is inflating with Weimar Republic velocity. The parliament is now simply lobbing off 4 zeros from the sunken real's value, which was trading today at 1.15 million reals per dollar. The IDF now knows where the missing 400 kilograms of highly enriched 60% uranium is hiding. And as I revealed in several articles, while 60% enrichment is insufficient to create a miniaturized bomb to be secreted into the nose cone of a Shahab 3 missile or a Gaiam 100 space-launched vehicle, it is enough to create a crude, oversized device, somewhat bigger than the pair we exploded over Japan. Yes, that 60% HEU would have to be 1, metallized, 2, it's got to be smelted into a slag, and 3, it's got to be molded into an explosive core. That requires 3 separate laboratory settings functioning under tight clinical conditions. But analysts believe that may be happening, perhaps at 1 or 2 underground sites not hit by Operation Midnight Hammer. The first is at Pickaxe Mountain, known in Iran as Kul-in Kolang Gazla, about 2 miles from the bombed Natanz facility. The second is a tertiary underground facility down the hill from the bombed Isfahan Enrichment Center. Under satellite imagery, both show furious construction activity in the past few weeks. Israeli leaders and American military planners are expecting a fresh outbreak of warfare with Iran at any moment. I mean, any moment. Even while the hostages are coming back. The Israeli government has asked its citizens to stay close to bomb shelters. For its part, the U.S. has rushed 5 more THAAD missile anti-aircraft batteries to a secret base known as Site 512 in Israel, atop Mount Karen in the Negev Desert west of the Dimona reactor. That makes 11 THAAD batteries in this small base in Israel. The U.S. has already used 25% of all THAAD SM-3 interceptors globally available. So we're running low, and within a few days, we may run lower. In addition, the Navy has just dispatched our newest and most powerful carrier, the Gerald Ford, with a strike group, which includes Carrier Air Wing 8 and 3 guided missile destroyers, the Mitcher, the Mahan, and the Bainbridge, plus 2 more destroyers, the Winston S. Churchill and the Forrest Sherman. Additionally, the Nimitz carrier group just steamed out of the South China Sea to replace the Carl Vinson strike group, plus fleets, entire fleets of Super Hornets and F-35s, accompanied by an unprecedented 12 K-135 refuelers, have all moved to the airbase in Qatar, and they all did so within a 24-hour window. The buildup is immense and unprecedented. The rising lion does not sleep tonight because Iran is desperate, apocalyptic, and cornered. You can better understand the dynamics with my book, Israel Strikes Iran. But the lion does not sleep tonight, and the lion is preparing to roar and rise again at any moment. Item 2, the UN, worthless, is the illegitimate successor to the illegitimate League of Nations, which illegitimately invented the nations of the Middle East after World War I, with borders to accommodate the oil pipelines desired by British Petroleum. Remember, the oil nation-dominated League of Nations fully functioned, until April 19th, 1946, when it was folded into the communist and Arabist-dominated United Nations. The League failed to stop any of the atrocious developments of the rise of Hitler in 1933, the crushing persecution of the Jews throughout Europe during the pre-war years, the rape of Nanking, which mass murdered more than 100,000 starting in 1938, the outbreak of World War II in 1939, the installation of 35,000 German concentration camps throughout Europe, including death camps, the alliance between France and the Third Reich, all those Arab pogroms, none of it. What a waste of wood and marble. The failure of the Neo-Colonial League was replaced with the equally worthless United Nations, which has done nothing to end numerous wars, the genocide against the Uyghurs in China, the genocide of Christians in Africa and across the Middle East, nothing to promote peace or end war anywhere. Ending war has fallen to the White House, to Donald Trump, who has averted or concluded 6 wars. As the nuclear-capable conflict between Pakistan and India, the one in Rwanda and the Congo, the one between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Cambodia and Thailand's conflict, Egypt and Ethiopia, and it has ignited the rapid rehabilitation of ISIS-ravaged Syria. Now we see the Abraham Accords, the end of the Gaza war, and the coming hostage release. So who the heck needs the UN? No one should pay any attention to anything the corrupt United Nations says or shouts. I've examined many Mideast peace plans, fat ones and footnoted ones. The most reliable is a 3-word plan: stop killing Jews. If you want to figure out what's on any Israeli's mind, just say hello or goodbye. It's the same word, shalom. In Hebrew, shalom means peace, so Israelis keep repeating that word every day and every hour, and perhaps now with Donald Trump's grand bargain in the Middle East, it may pay off. Item 3, Canada, a failing state, becoming an epicenter of Jew hatred, freedom repression, and Islamist takeover. On October 7th, 2 days ago, as Jews were mourning the greatest violence against us since the Holocaust, the Earl Haig Secondary School, a public school in North Toronto with about 2,000 students, played the national anthem of Canada. It's O Canada. They played it on a loudspeaker, but they played it in Arabic. Numerous riots and protests broke out in favor of Hamas across Canada. At Concordia University, the campus was shut down after violent protests marked by weapons and incendiary devices. A bus driver at the Montreal airport threatened to, quote, decapitate a family of Jews like Hamas, unquote. as the family fled. They videotaped him, shouting like a madman, "You Zionist piece of shit!" We have the tape. For Jews, April was known for Passover in Canada. Now, on October 7th, the Canadian government has announced April is now Arab Heritage Month. And now an odious new Orwellian law is expected to pass, C8, which in plain language empowers ministers in the government to declare a person's communications or even comments a threat, whatever that means. And as we have seen, this can include ordinary criticism of the government and even protest against the false narratives of the proposed anti-Israel Nakba bill, which proclaims the birth of Israel as a historic catastrophe. Any such utterance considered a threat without notice to the individual and without due process can trigger an order to remove the person, get this, from all internet and telephonic services. Moreover, the decision and order can be declared secret and no one may disclose it. Imagine a dystopian world where you wake up in Canada and you're suddenly exiled into a digital prison in your own home. The law is C8. You can find it online. It has survived 2 readings and is expected to be adopted shortly. No wonder Canadians are fleeing their beloved country. No wonder a Canadian appeared on this show some weeks ago with their voice disguised out of fear. No wonder other Canadians were afraid to appear today on this show before you. Germany, the land of Mozart, Bach, and Bavarian desserts, overnight became the Third Reich. Canada, the land of goodwill, majestic peaks and maple leaves, has become a threat to personal freedoms with the Jewish people as the first line of victimization. Boycott the hell out of this failing state to the north. President Trump, Canada is not our friend. They are not our partner. During the Holocaust, they were asked how many Jews they would save and officially replied through its minister, Frederick Blair, "None is too many." Canada, your wish shall soon be realized. And now this brings us to the topic of the day, a second Holocaust. It's coming. I knew this was coming back in 2013 and hinted at it to my closest circles. Eliza will remember that. Every day I saw the signs more clearly. Remember, Jewish historians are constantly looking over their shoulder. When I developed the Edwin Black Show, I began a series in 2022 with an unthinkable title, Kristallnacht 2.0. Many scoffed at the very idea. It was abhorrent and it seemed unrealistic. As time passed, with parts 2, 3, 4, and then 5, almost everyone agreed the threat was real. After October 7, people wondered if we weren't living through the first stages. This year, I changed the series name to Second Holocaust. No one disputed me. Now they say I called it years ago, and with good reason, because look around us. As I detailed in my book, IBM and the Holocaust, Hitler's Holocaust unfolded in 6 mandatory phases: identification, exclusion, pauperization, ghettoization, deportation, and then extermination. After centuries of massacres and official oppression, Hitler's genocide only became possible because technology was added. And when I say technology, I mean the IBM punch card, which indispensably systematized, streamlined, coordinated, and consolidated all 6 phases of Hitler's program, thereby dictating the size and scope of the persecution and the mass murder. Lawyers for mass murdered genocide planning, IBM, lawyers, hear me. IBM, you did it, you never denied it, and you have never been held to account except in the pages and documentation of my book, IBM and the Holocaust. So, that was 8 decades ago. Imagine what the technology today can achieve, from mapping projects to reveal our names and locations, to boycott lists and social media protest coordination to exclude us from society and bankrupt our livelihoods, from copycat inspiring videos of violence against Jews, such as Mohammed Sabri Solomon in Boulder, Colorado, last June trying to burn Jews alive, or assassin Elias Rodriguez, who traveled from Chicago with a GoPro to film himself in May of this year, shooting in cold blood two Israeli embassy staff members outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, or Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who last month regretted he did not have a nuclear bomb to use against Israel. You know I have 50 more examples like that, so I will not use my precious time on further startling you with depressing examples. Instead, I'm going to tell you how this time it's going to be different. I have an action plan. First, we need to understand the ground around us. We do not have one enemy, one perpetrator. We have a combination nemesis determined to wipe us out, and they don't hide their intentions. Let's be clear, we're too far gone for me to be polite. It's not Islam, but it is Islamism, and it's the violent Arab street that has invaded European and North American cities, bringing with them their doctrinaire determination to carry out the Quranic mandate to kill the Jews and conquer Western society. I don't have enough minutes in the hour or hours in the day to list all the Arab slaughters of the Jews in every century from place to place, starting with the Medina extermination in 627, in which the Prophet Muhammad killed every Jewish man who would not convert to Islam and kidnapped the women and children. In the Quran, this extermination is called the Battle of the Trench, or read about it more decisively in my book, The Farhud, Roots of the Arab Nazi Alliance in the Holocaust. And yes, Arabs worldwide openly and lovingly supported Hitler's Holocaust. And they did so diplomatically, economically, and even with military divisions, 3 military divisions. So the continuity from the Mufti of Jerusalem and the International Higher Arab Committee of the 30s and 40s, today's crisis is easy to document. In America, this Arab movement has found ways to make common cause with the radical socialists, the transgenders, the queer community, the academics, the climate crazies, such as Greta Thunberg, the Tesla burners, the Trump derangement sufferers, and most importantly, they and their diverse connections have hijacked the Democratic Party in America, and in the UK it's the Labour Party, and in Canada the Liberal Party, and so on. The radicalized Democratic Party in the US is now the enemy of the Jews. For heaven's sakes, the overwhelming Democratic National Teachers Association just cut off relations with the Anti-Defamation League and issued course guidance on the Holocaust that omits any mention of the Jews, but rather just a tragedy that killed, quote, more than 12 million victims of different faiths. That's an absolute lie. I'm a registered Democrat, everyone knows that, but the party is no longer the party of my parents or my vote decisions in a prior decade. Senator John Fetterman, Representative Richie Torres, and a dozen other good and reasonable people in the Democratic Party are on their way out to be replaced by Ilhan Omar, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Zohran Mamdani, who was endorsed by Bernie Sanders and the governor of New York, facilitated by the unending money pockets of Qatar, George Soros, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. And remember, Rockefeller money funded Mengele, who went to Auschwitz, and there are others wealthy enough to pay to see it all burned down, so long as their tower is padded with asbestos. In a recent Quinnipiac survey, only 12% of Democrats supported Israel, and in some polls in recent days, the number sank to just 10%. Wake up, Jews! You are voting for the people who want to dispossess you. Wake up, liberals! You are supporting those who wish to repeat the bloodiest and most repressive chapters in history. So what do? We have seen enough. We take action, and we do so now. I have a 6-point plan: education, affiliation, boycott, prosecution, legislation, and litigation. First, education. You are running blind if you don't know your facts and your history. Learn something. There's a community of intellectual leaders who can explain fact from fiction. Do you know that the Arabs stole the Palestinian identity from Jewish Zionists in May 1964 when the KGB joined forces with the PLO? For generations, Jews in Jewish Palestine were the Palestinians. That is before 1964. Do you know that Gaza was mainly built and settled not by Arabs, but by Albanians under Ottoman General Muhammad Ali? Do you know there was never a nation of Palestine? Fake news has plagued the Jews for centuries. We didn't poison the waters. We didn't spread the plague. We didn't do the nutty stuff in Henry Ford's Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And we don't control the media or the banks. I wish I could. I'd have a little money in my pocket. And we're not starving the children of Gaza. There is no occupation on the West Bank, and the refugee camps are just fake setups. Why the heck do they need a refugee camp in their own territory? So your ability to skillfully distinguish and rebut fact from slander is imperative. If you have a question about any of this, I have 500 videos at my YouTube channel and lots of books. Use your head, not your TV remote. Affiliate. Find common cause with the people who support us and open your eyes. This includes the Christian community, the Latino community, Indian Americans, and many others. Be sincere, and sincerity will be returned to you. Boycott the hell out of those who boycott you. Boycott Canada. Boycott that part of Hollywood declaring a boycott on us. Remember, Israel is not them, it's us. More than half the Jews in the world are in Israel. Prosecution and litigation. Trump and his administration has led the way in prosecuting and litigating against anti-Semitism in our colleges. But so have our new and impressive grassroots organizations and new and overhauled Jewish defense organizations, such as the Brandeis Center, Stand With Us, the Zionist Organization, Stop Anti-Semitism Now, and many others. Learn about them. The big three don't exist for us anymore. The American Jewish Congress is a faint shadow of what it was during the Holocaust. The American Jewish Committee, which was anti-Zionist during the run-up to the Holocaust, no one even knows what it does anymore. Every one of you and I, we're all on the front line. Know your new leaders and the new leadership. Brave action, not fundraising banquets, is what we need. We need protective laws, and we need to get them passed locally, statewide, and federally. The line between protest and mob action is the barrier to the Arab street and their youthful idiots. Peaceful protest should never interfere with or damage anyone else. It can never be in the street. It can never be obstructive. It must be quiet, not riotous. People who come to a protest armored with masks and shields are no different than coming armed. Being armed and wearing armor is the same thing. Arrest them. Create safe spaces around businesses, houses of worship. We did this to curtail the KKK with the Ku Klux Klan Act, the FACE Act to protect abortion clinics, and many other pieces of legislation. And we need to aggressively pursue federal prosecution for incitement. Write that down, lawyers. Incitement. I refer to 18 U.S. Code number 373. Solicitation to commit a crime of violence, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court under the Brandenburg ruling with regard to immediacy of any violence. 18 U.S. Code 1461, disseminating crime inciting matter. That's on the internet. 18 U.S. Code 2385, advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government. I will have more to say about this and other topics in another episode, but free speech and fair protest cannot impinge on any other rights, including the right to the quiet usage of our streets and our communities. Here we need to seek protection under and extend the mob action laws many states have already enacted. And we need to fight the funders. How is funding riot and mob action a tax-exempt and therefore a taxpayer-assisted charitable act? I'm talking to you, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, who donates generously to If Not Now and JVP. There's a lot more I will say in future episodes, as I've indicated, but the most important thing is to recognize where the heck we are and whether the heck we're going down that his awful historic road or whether we have the gumption to say this time we fight back. I left out 90% of what I promised myself I would say, but now I turn it over to another member of our team. I want to bring you, ladies and gentlemen, one of the leading fighters for justice and rights, America's top jurist fighting internationally for Jewish and individual rights. I give you Richard Heideman. Richard, take the screen now.
Thank you, Edwin. That lecture was better than any full professor could give in 3 hours. We appreciate you and everything that you have said. Let us go back for just a moment. 100 years to the declaration of the Nazi principles in the 1920s. People didn't really know about it because we didn't have communication like we have today. And those who knew about it really didn't take it seriously. 10 years later, the Nuremberg laws were adopted, the Nuremberg race laws. They defined in Germany who is a Jew. And they went to all types of, shall we say, indicia. What your nose looks like, what the color of your skin looks like, how your eyes might have been set. They covered all kinds of things, including the nth degree of relationship between Jewish grandparents on one side or another. Later in the 1930s, we already have heard about Kristallnacht, the massive attack on Jewish synagogues and Jewish businesses and storefronts around the world, called the Night of the Broken Glass. It's coming up now as 90 years since Kristallnacht. And what was accompanying that? The boycott. All of this predated the actual Shoah, predated the Holocaust. And in the Holocaust, our community was targeted, not alone, other minorities as well, but the Jewish community was decimated. The attempt was to destroy the lives, the fabric, the fiber of our communities, but also our lives, to kill, to maim, to destroy, to disenfranchise. Lawyers couldn't work. Judges couldn't work. After the Shoah, there was the creation of the United Nations. And the world had great hope that with the family of nations, there would come into being also a Jewish state. The partition resolution envisioned both a Jewish state and an Arab state and special status for Jerusalem. But it was that United Nations, that family of nations, that in the 1970s adopted the resolution, Zionism equals racism, targeting in the United Nations the entire Jewish loving world, loving Israel. That if you're a Zionist and you love Zionism, you must be a racist. Fast forward to that, I'm going to go all the way to the First Intifada, the Second Intifada, and the Durban Conference 25 years ago. It's coming up now, 25 years ago. And on the grounds of Durban, we found a hate fest that was phenomenal. I'm sorry to use such a word. It was phenomenal. We were pushed, we were shoved, we were hated, we were ostracized. They tried to drive us out 25 years ago. And what emerged out of that Durban conference? The Durban program, the Durban Declaration. That program under the auspices of the United Nations is still playing out today, 25 years later. Boycotts, academic boycotts, terrorism, economic boycotts, hate being acceptable. It led all the way to phrases that we were hearing. Intersectionality. If you're oppressed and I'm oppressed, we're oppressed together. And it was the Jews who oppressed us. And we as a community didn't do anything about it. We didn't take it seriously. We didn't focus on it. We didn't come up with counter narratives. We just simply said, everything will be okay, which is our way. And we went on in celebrating life, in celebrating family, in celebrating holidays. And over the last 25 years, Even before October 7th, it became acceptable to call for hating the Jews. Now we had October 7th, and barely before the ink was dry in talking about the massacre of October 7th. On October 8th, around the world, kill the Jews, kill Israel, hate Israel became paramount. And what did most of the world do? They didn't complain. They didn't boycott against it. They paraded with it. And this has been going on for 2 years. God willing, the hostage deal announced last night will come to fruition. The president deserves great praise. The prime minister deserves great praise. Their courage, their visionary leadership is to be applauded. But let's all not get into such euphoria. We have a long road ahead. They will, God willing, come home, both alive and those not alive. Families have been torn apart. Communities have been torn apart. And when we look at the last 100 years, we have to ask ourselves, what lessons have we learned? Yes, as Edwin said, we're standing up stronger. We're litigating. We're fighting back. In my view, we must adopt, as I've said so many times before, a zero tolerance approach. We cannot let everybody get away with it. I close with this. Go back and look at the images of what went on at the Sharm el-Sheikh discussions that were broadcast last night. Look at the glee around the room, but look particularly at the glee on the faces of these Hamas fat cats who killed us, maimed us, burned us, beheaded us, and now they've applauded everybody that did it, and they're working hard to get them out of prison so they can do it again. Take this seriously. Euphoria is one thing. Reality is another. We have a lot of work to do, and it's going to take visionary leadership in order to make it happen. Edwin, Nat, Yossie, thank you all very much. And I don't want to forget, because you've mentioned her twice, Eliza, she is our heroine. She leads that Brandeis Center that stands up every day and does a fabulous job, an example among others for all of us. Let's now get serious. Let's not just simply accept the hostages and believe that everything will be okay, because it's not okay. We have work to do. Thank you very much.
Richard, I agree with every single syllable that you said and the way that you said it. Just a few comments. One, you mentioned the fact of all these people being looked at for their heads and their nose sites and all that. That brings me to remember, I wrote an entire book on that, War Against the Weak, exposing eugenics. And who funded that? Rockefeller Foundation. And the same money spawned the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. And all that's going to be, that continuity is going to be shown in the coming days in my forthcoming 15th anniversary of Nazi Nexus. I also want to comment about your important observations on the Durban Conference. And who funded the Durban Conference? The Ford Foundation. That was exposed in my Turning Point investigation, Funding Hate, which I think Eve is going to try to gather up the materials and post them on my website soon. I know you have to cut out right now, but I just want to say thank you very much for everything that you are doing. And I promise that if we're only partially successful, we will magnify and multiply the activities that you are engaged in.
Thank you.
All right, now I would like to please bring in Nat, and I'd like to describe him. Nat is, of course, a survivor of the Holocaust era. Nat Lewin, who has fought for Jewish and civil rights for decades, one of the most knowing of defense-minded attorneys. I give you Nat. He's now in Jerusalem. Nat, take 1 minute to describe the mood in Israel right now with the hostages said to be coming home, and then tell us where you are on fighting back against the second Holocaust that we can sense is coming our way. Take it, Nat.
First of all, of course, the hostage news coincides with Man Simchatenu, with the happy holiday of Sukkot. And sitting here just outside the old city of Jerusalem all night long, there's been singing, dancing, music, because of the combination of what many people accept as very gleeful and happy news and the holiday of Sukkot and Simchat Torah. We have to recognize, first of all, and I think that's most important, that peace, which people here in Israel and Jews all over the world are believing may result from this amazing combination of Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump, may be purely visionary until these hostages are actually released and the agreement that was signed and that is being celebrated is actually implemented. I have to tell you, from my experience, I have to be skeptical. I've lived through the joy and the euphoria of the Oslo Agreement with Yasser Arafat and Rabin and Clinton, and everybody applauding and believing that there was going to be great peace all over the world. But you have to realize peace under Jewish tradition is very unique. We say together with regard to peace, Sim Shalom. We ask God to establish peace. In the prayer that's said by the priests, the third one of the three classic praises says, Yossie L'cha Shalom. He should establish peace. Establishing peace requires divine intervention. There's no shalom without Yasim Shalom. It's very unusual, really. Establish peace. That's the blessing that we're asking for. And until I personally can experience and see that the hostages have actually been returned and that this piece of paper that was negotiated by representatives of Bibi Netanyahu and Donald J. Trump in Sharm el-Sheikh is actually coming into existence, that I can believe that God Almighty has created peace that can be relied on, not the kind of peace that Bill Clinton thought and that Jews in Israel believed was resulting from what Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat had a handshake. Let's be skeptical, let's be realistic, and let's see whether Monday or Tuesday, which are now kind of the deferred days for this happy event of the release of the living hostages, actually comes into being rather than experiencing disappointment and unhappiness. And that, to me, is the lesson sitting here in Jerusalem and hearing and seeing on local television the great celebration that's taking place because it's anticipated that the hostages will be released.
Now, Nat, you lived through the first Holocaust, and you know the road signs. What are you seeing now in terms of a potential second Holocaust? And thank you for your observations about what's going on. And you're so correct. Like I said, until the last person and the last corpse crosses the line, I will not have any confidence. But what are you now seeing today based upon your experience with the first Holocaust?
I'm seeing a world that is even far worse with regard to Jewish condition than during the first Holocaust. Much of America was clearly uninvolved and unconcerned about what was going on until the United States entered the war after Pearl Harbor. And even after that, Jews and Jewish fate was really considered a very minor issue. My father of blessed memory was a writer in Yiddish who would write about Churban Europa, about the destruction of Europe, and the Jews of Europe and the Jews of America barely cared. They expressed concern, nothing much. Today, we see a situation in which the problem is not lack of concern, the problem is vigorous, violent opposition and hatred to Jews, the kind of thing that in Germany was aroused by the writings and the publications of Goebbels and Hitler's other associates and resulted in mass exterminations. We don't see in the United States today anything like that, although we see incidents and harbingers of great danger. I have to tell you, sitting in Jerusalem and occasionally having to go down to a bomb shelter when there are sirens in the middle of the night, I have to feel more confident of my own safety. I am more confident of my own safety today in Jerusalem than I am in Potomac, Maryland, where I am concerned that my representatives, Senator Van Hollen, who's a vicious anti-Semite by now, or anti-Israel, my congressman, Jamie Raskin, who's outrageously anti-Semitic, and the other senator who was recently elected, Senator Alsabrook. These are people whom the Jewish community should rise in unified opposition to try to defeat them in elections. And unfortunately, neighbors of mine in Maryland support these people, notwithstanding what they stand for. It's a great danger. Jews in the United States are today in very substantial danger. And there's been some mention heretofore of the activities of my daughter, Aliza, who has been very active with the Brandeis Center in terms of fighting against anti-Semitism.
All right, listen, I want to ask you in plain words. Is the second Holocaust coming or not?
Answer, very likely, yes. The only strength, the only barrier to a second Holocaust is a very strong Israel and a very strong alliance with leaders in the United States like Donald J. Trump, who recognizes the importance of the worldwide Jewish community and its safety. Only if a Bibi Netanyahu and a Donald J. Trump together fight against a second Holocaust can a second Holocaust be prevented.
Well, I'm very sad that you agreed with me.
I'm sad because I used to think, as I was a young battling lawyer and fight in the courts for Jewish rights, that the courts could defend the rights of Jews. And I may have said this on your program in the past, but I think the courts will be a defense for the Jewish community. Today, I've thrown up my hands. I look at decisions of the courts, even occasionally satisfactory decisions by the Supreme Court, by a bare majority of the Supreme Court. But where the courts are today, I am very fearful for the Jewish community. And I think that the attitudes of judges in the United States are no longer impartial and fair as I believe they were many years ago when I was studying law at, you'll excuse the expression, Harvard Law School.
Yes, I will excuse you for that affiliation. Thank you, Nat. I hope to be with you and your lovely family again soon. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to turn to one of the planet's most vital players in Holocaust research and memory. We turn to Yossie Hollander. Currently, he's in California. Please pay attention to what he has to say. Take the mic, Yossie. But first, before you talk about the second Holocaust, tell us your thoughts on this hostage release.
First of all, the hostage release is only the first stage of the deal. The critical phase of the deal that we'll have to see if it will be fulfilled is the disarmament of Hamas. And I'm not sure this will happen, and that will be a big test for Donald J. Trump and whether he will allow Israel to resume war in case it doesn't happen. So that's a big test. But when I'm looking at the deal as a whole, whenever there's a deal where Qatar and Turkey are smiling, I'm worried not just for Israel, I'm worried for the Jewish people, I'm worried for the United States and the entire West, because they don't have our interests at heart. But if I'm thinking about it from their perspective and other people's perspective, Israel and the United States has demonstrated superior war machine and technology over adversaries, okay, over the last 2 years. And I think if I'm right now, let's say Qatar, and I would actually put the Hamas in a dormant state for a while, because as well as Israel and the United States are executing on the hard war, we're executed horribly on the what I call soft war. That is the battle for the minds, the battle for the influence, the battle of the next generation and the education of the next generation. I mean, we're losing this battle we already lost this battle in the American university. We're losing not just Israel, I mean, the United States itself. We're losing it in school. We're losing it among the young generation. When I say the we, it's all the four we's that I just said. And Qatar, I think their strategy over the next 20 years, together with Iran, together with Russia, and together with China, will be to push anti-Semitism, push anti-West through soft means. They already bribed their way into total control of Europe. I mean, Europe has become a shadow of itself, okay? Look where UK Prime Minister and the French Prime Minister are, and where Spain is, and most of Europe, it's like, what is it? I mean, they have less spine than they had before World War II. Chamberlain would have been a great fighter compared to where they are today. So my worry is that they're going to use their strength, that is bribing everybody, activating the soft war, including now bribing the entire United States. And they're going to have more gas because they actually now own they used to be sharing the largest gas field in the world with Iran. Now they have another gas field that is larger than this one, and it's all owned by them. It hasn't been developed yet, but that just tells you what their influence is going to be and the amount of money they will have. So I'm very, very worried because in 10, 20 years, there won't be any support. If we let this happen, there wouldn't be any support for the United States, for Israel in the United States. Europe will be largely controlled by Islamists. We see the first moves here. I mean, most of the mayors in the UK are Muslims. We're going to, Mandani is just the first step. This is a slow process. They don't care how long it takes. But in 10, 20 years, Israel will be alone. Jews will be alone. In Europe, there wouldn't be any Jew in 20 years.
So, Yossie, thank you for your remarks. And I'd like everyone to know that Yossie and Richard appeared with me a couple of weeks ago on a show called The Qatar Threat. And that will be released tomorrow morning at dawn. Eve is going to push the button and you will learn a lot more. So, Yossie, are you telling me that the Holocaust is coming, the second Holocaust?
I think possible. Okay. We also have to remember that Israel now has a nuclear bomb. Okay.
You mean the non-existent,
supposed to have.
the
Okay.
non-existent nuclear bomb?
The one that non-exists, right?
That's
exactly.
right.
And that's a pretty big deterrent, okay, on the world. And nobody in Israel will commit suicide. But again, if the world will boycott Israel, will not allow people to fly out of Israel, will close all banking relationship, this could be a very, very, very tight time for the Jewish people. But the Jewish people are not going to commit any more suicide without a fight. So the danger exists. I'm looking at a bigger danger, that is the entire West, because if the entire West system collapses under pressure from Qatar, Iran, China, and Russia, Holocaust will be a small item. I mean, we will see hundreds of millions dead.
That's right, because the Holocaust was just part of World War II. And I might say the mass murder of Jews in World War I was just a part of World War I. And I would also say, for that matter, the death and destruction, the murder and extermination of the Jews of Palestine during the Crusades was also just a footnote to it. Thank you very much. Stick around. I've got a bunch of questions. And the first one comes from someone called Rita in Century City. I can't imagine who Rita is. She wants to know, and I'm going to ask you this question, with the Muslim birth rate exploding in Europe, when will it be considered a caliphate? Go.
That's a very interesting situation because, I mean, they already achieved a certain percentage and a certain money control and other control where it's very difficult to establish a government without the Muslims. Okay. So that's already critical. So Macron would not be without the Muslim vote. So now the question is, even if the majority of the people in the country among the non-Muslim are against everything like that, they still may not be able to elect a government. I don't know if Europe can recover because they're not having any children at all. Although the Muslim population is having less children than they would have in their original country because they're adapting to where they're living, I think that Europe has still not shown any sign that they can get out of their decline. So 20, 30 years, I unfortunately see a Muslim control in many countries in Europe. Not in Eastern Europe, by the way, but in Western Europe.
And I say that's interesting, and additionally, because Ken Abramowitz, who wrote The Multi-Front War, who's listening now, has asked this question. When there is Islamic control of England and France, who's running their nuclear bombs? And I would just like to also footnote for you, in recent days, no fewer than 5 Muslim MPs asked England, Great Britain, to declare war on Israel. We're going to go to our second question from Chris in Indiana. Could Israel's refusal to release Marwan Barghouti potentially derail the return of the hostages? Barghouti killed, I believe, 68 people and is serving 68 life sentences. I have his documents. Nat Lewin, can you come on? And what do you think? Is this Marwan Barghouti thing holding things up, or has that been decided?
Well, I think that's one of so very many possible pretexts that may be used in the next few days for not releasing all the hostages as they have promised to Netanyahu and to Trump. One of the possible things is, well, we don't think you're releasing the important Palestinian hostages that you're holding, and therefore we're not going to release the others. And then what are going to do? What will Trump do? What will Netanyahu do? I think they would authorize full-scale war against Hamas in Gaza.
I agree with you. Let's go to the watch party in the villages. When did the Democratic Party change to become so anti-Semitic? I don't know if we could put a date on it. Yossie, in 30 seconds, do you know when the transition occurred? Was it Barack Obama? When did the Democratic Party start? There was an organization, there still is, called the Democratic Majority for Israel. I don't think they can call themselves a majority anymore in view of the fact that 90% of the Democrats do not support Israel. But the Villages wants to know, when did this trend start? Can you put your finger on it, Yossi?
It's a process, therefore it is not a date, okay? The whole connection between the Islamist and the radical left has gained power over the years more and more. And one of the byproduct of it is anti-Semitism. It's the same as DEI, it's the same as being anti-America. There's no difference, okay? We're just the canary in the coal mine, we're the main target. But the Islamists don't say our goal is to destroy Israel and then we'll rest. That's not their goal. It's just one of the means to an end. So if you ask me where the Democratic Party has been lost, it's been taken over by the radical left. Soros money, Rockefeller money are also involved, but also external money, including Chinese and Russian.
Okay,
When I was a young lawyer, Abner Mikva, who was the Democratic leader in the Congress and the head of the Jewish caucus, he was a total supporter of Israel. And the Democratic Party, again, in my young days, and I was very proud to be a Democrat at that time, was totally supportive of Israel. And then, with the progressive revolution in the Democratic Party, it turned anti-Israel and anti-Semitic.
You know, you mentioned Abner Mikva. He was a friend of mine in Chicago, became an Illinois Supreme Court judge. Very, very nice man. Newton, Massachusetts. Can the second Holocaust be averted? I want a yes or no from Yossi, Nat, and I don't know if Richard has joined us, but Nat, just a yes or no. Can the second Holocaust be averted?
Only by the strong combined power of the United States and Israel. Only by force or threat of force by both countries that would affect the rest of the world.
Yossi, can the Holocaust be averted? Yes or no?
Yes, but you have to ask me how.
How?
So we need, like we have a strong defense department or war department, we need a soft war agency both in the United States and Israel. The modern tools of the world, we need a whole new system to fight those threats, including new laws, adaptations, new people who specialize in it. It's more than just, I'll give you an example, just one example, okay? Today, AI models are learning what they're doing and saying what they find in places like in Wikipedia. Well, the other side have taken over Wikipedia, and which is supposed to be a free for all, etc. And basically, right now, any anti-American, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel information become part of the answers of the AI models.
Yes, I should say
this
that.
is, for example, how. So this is a problem not just for Israel; it's a problem for America. I mean, if everybody asks if America is a good country, they say no, it's a racist country. That's what the ChatGPT will tell you today. So you have to fight it, all these issues, with a special organization, including which will be combined and coordinated with physical activity. Okay. I mean, I think the United States should shut down all the servers of Wikipedia right away until Wikipedia's model is changed, because otherwise we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot.
All right, so look, why don't you and I open up a bottle when I get there next month and we'll sketch it out?
All right.
Okay, so the question to me is, can the second Holocaust be averted? And here's my one-word answer. Maybe. That's why I'm doing the show. That's why Yossi's making his comment. That's why Nat is making his observation. That's why Richard is raising his alarm. Stephen in Pennsylvania, if the leftist Democrats regain the White House, is it game over for Israel and Jews around the world? I'm going to answer this in one word. Yes. Let me say it again in case you didn't get it. Yes. Yossi, if the Dems retake the White House and all the rest, is it game over for the Yidden?
When? If it's in 4 years, it's going to make things more difficult. If it's in 8 or 12, probably not. But it all depends also on what happens in between.
All right, Mark and Van.
Well, you also, in answer to that question, you ought to ask yourself, what would be the situation today if the President of the United States were Kamala Harris and not Donald Trump? What would be the condition of Israel, and what would be the situation of Jews around the world under President Kamala Harris?
Yeah, that's a frightful prospect. Thank you for asking it and for scaring the heck out of us. Last question, Mark in Vancouver. Will the Gaza peace deal help the situation? I'm going to answer because I know Yossie will talk for 5 minutes. I'm going to answer for Yossie and say, no, it is not going to help. It's just the very next chapter, because what Yossie would say is that now they see how to win against us, and they will only do it again at their earliest opportunity. We're out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Hold for my closing word of wisdom, just 2 minutes away. But first, I want to thank my extremely knowledgeable guest, Yossie Hollander. Thank you, Yossie. Nat Lewin. Thank you, Nat. And Richard Heideman. Plus, I thank my talented international team, including Virginia and New Jersey, Lance in Michigan, Richard in the Philippines, as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here in 2 weeks at 3 p.m. Eastern. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to the edwinblackshow.com/support. We really, really need you to keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes Books, Google Books, Kobo, or Audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet, where you can find any of my 325 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust and my latest Israel Strikes Iran. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com and click books. Get access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show, and click the notification button, please, like tens of thousands of others have. Follow me at Edwin Black Book and X, as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. Don't get scared. Get ready. I'm zooming out from our nation's capital. Bless all of you and pray for all that is unfolding before our very eyes.